It's Emma Vigeling with TYT Politics live on youtube.com/TYT Politics. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell Randy Gonzalez. I mixed that up a little bit, but you get the gist. Obviously, the UK elections were yesterday, and there were some wonderful results for the Labour Party and for Jeremy Corbyn. And while I'm not the foremost expert on UK politics, I was extremely interested in what was happening there. I was very encouraged by the results, but I think that there's some really interesting tie-ins, one in particular, to US politics that I want to explore with you and to talk a little bit about. So if you guys don't know who Jim Messina is, he's a former Obama senior advisor who actually was involved in Theresa May's campaign, not Jeremy Corbyn, the current Prime Minister, Theresa May, whose party is the Conservative Party. So let's talk a little bit more about Jim Messina. He was an advisor for Montana Senator Jon Tester's election to the Senate in 2006, who, as Jordan has reported in the past, was just hosting fundraisers with these wealthy bundlers who had broken records for the amount of money they were fined by the FEC for campaign contribution violations. So Jon Tester is not the biggest progressive, to say the least, and is obviously heavily involved in big money in politics. That's how Messina got his biggest start when he actually joined President Obama's 2008 campaign and then became President Obama's White House Deputy Chief of Staff. And he earned the nickname The Fixer, which is a very Washington way of aggrandizing an individual, and he was apparently BFFs with Rahm Emanuel. In 2012, he was the campaign manager for President Obama for that campaign, and yes, was a protege of Rahm Emanuel, was heavily involved in Rahm Emanuel's going-abouts in the White House, etc., was working with him. According to this Politico article, as White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel's deputy for the first 2 years of Obama's administration, Messina's main task was to fix problems, whether they were big ones like healthcare reform or specific ones like John Huntsman. Interesting. Worried 3 years ago that this was in 2012, written by Glenn Thrush, who was actually at Politico at the time, worried 3 years ago that the moderate, eerily Obama-like Republican governor of Utah should be a formidable 2012 opponent, Messina and Emanuel hatched a solution: ship him off to Beijing as an ambassador to China. They had this crazy relationship, said a former senior advisor official who worked with Emanuel and Messina. You'd be in a meeting and Rahm would bark out something that needed to be done. Jim would disappear from Rahm's office, pop through the door a few minutes later and say, "Got it," or "Got him." Interesting. So apparently they were two peas in a pod, which shouldn't spell good things for who Messina is, as Rahm Emanuel said that liberals who wanted single payer back when Obamacare was being pushed through were effing I'm not going to say the full word, but you know what it is. So classy guy. So after all of this and some dabbling in UK politics, which he will return to, Messina became the co-chair of Priorities USA Action. You guys know what that is, right? A super PAC working to elect Hillary Clinton. They did a great job. They did a great job. Before he was the co-chair, do you know who headed that organization? David Brock, who is the founder of the Bernie Bro narrative. So we can all thank David Brock and his idiotic hair. Never trust a man with hair like that. He was in great company. First Rahm Emanuel and then David Brock. So how much did Priorities USA spend? How big of an advantage did Priorities USA have in the election? Hillary Clinton outspent Donald Trump 2-1, and the Republican donor class was not really that much on Trump's side. As you know, the Kochs notoriously sat out the election where Donald Trump was running. I remember actually there being a Priorities USA Snapchat filter the day before the election. Good job, Messina, because that really switched a lot of people's votes. It really worked out, that stupid filter with her haircut. So apparently, Priorities USA received over $192 million and spent $190 million of that. $136 million of that was on just media and ads. Lordy, $192 million Messina had to win this election for Hillary Clinton. Couldn't even do that with his super PAC. Massive, massive super PAC. George Soros, by the way, is the largest donor to Priorities USA. He donated $6 million personally this cycle. And by the way, let's note for the record that while Soros is a major donor in the Democratic Party and $6 million is nothing to sniff your nose up at, he's often cited in the same breath as the Koch brothers, and that's a drop in the bucket for the Koch brothers, let's be real. So Soros and the Koch brothers do not have the same amount of influence. But because I said that, I will wait for my Soros check in the mail because I was paid to say that, obviously. So with all of that, and they still lost. With all of that money Priorities USA had, they still lost. And despite the historic loss, with all of these advantages, with the fact that they were running against an orange buffoon who was already befuddling the American people and is already under a serious investigation right now, who's already tanking, couldn't even beat him. Then he gets hired to be a senior advisor for Theresa May's campaign, which brings me to today. So we all know how that worked out last night. Last night, Theresa May lost her Conservative Party the governing majority. The fractured voting saw strong gains by the largest opposition party, Labour, and modest gains by the smaller party, the centrist Liberal Democrats. May's Tories lost 12 seats in Parliament when just 2 months ago they had reasonably hoped to gain nearly 100. Kind of sounds like another campaign that Messina was involved with. Huge demographic advantages, huge predictions for their victory, but of course, they lose. They are still the largest party, the Conservatives, having won 318 out of 650 total seats, but will no longer hold a majority. And this is from The Guardian, Jag Singh, the founder of MessageSpace, who buys social media, internet, and print advertising, and provided services to the Conservative campaign, confirmed that the Tories spent less money on Facebook ads rallying their own supporters than targeting ads at soft Labour voters. That was based on faulty voter prediction data provided by the party's hired strategists, Linton Crosby and Jim Messina, which suggested, even until Thursday morning, that May was on course to seize Labour seats. So this guy, Jim Messina, is a loser. I mean, I'm not trying to dance on his grave or anything like that. But in the course of a few months, you have lost 2 elections based on faulty election data. The fact that he got hired after that historic failure of Hillary Clinton's loss by Theresa May is something that's ridiculous on its face. But the fact that he had faulty data both times is unbelievable, and lost when he shouldn't have lost based on those demographics, based on those predictions beforehand. That is crazy. So I thought that this really points out 2 things. 1, the donor class, these bundlers, these fundraisers, these party elites will always have a place, no matter how badly they fail. Just like Messina. He'll get another job, despite being a failure in the past few months. Really just blowing the lead. They're the Warriors last year. Although that's not a great analogy because the Warriors are about to kill the Cavs. But also a more important point, in my opinion. This shows how corporate Democrats, like Rahm Emanuel and his protege, Jim Messina, feel way more comfortable with conservatives than they do leftists. So, he could have gone to work for Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn is a Bernie Sanders-esque populist, advocates for taxes on the wealthy, goes after corporations, etc. But he didn't go that route. He decided to work for the bigot and social program slashing candidate, Theresa May. That is just so indicative of the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. They are more comfortable with being in the room with conservatives and people that are more deferential to business than they are with actual leftists, because actual leftists call you on your crap, essentially. They will call you for being so neoliberal. They will call you out for being so pro-corporation, so pro-business. That's what the reality is. So that's why corporate Democrats are so much more comfortable, even though they don't like Trump, but would almost rather have Donald Trump win than an actual socialist who would change things, social democrat, like Bernie Sanders. Because then they would have to change their corrupt ways. And they couldn't pretend to just be the good guys versus these horrific Republicans. That's really the reality. All right, guys, have a great day.